Welcome back to the channel, everybody, and today it is another video in my 2023 offseason prediction series. It is the LA Chargers. Make sure to thumbs up this video and leave a comment in the comment section and subscribe if you haven't already. Full disclosure, I made this video already, and now I'm redoing it because I did it right before the Broncos acquired Sean Payton in that trade, and I was pushing hard for the Chargers to be the ones to do that. Why is that? Because I've always felt that playing the odds, like this algorithmic way of coaching, is a failing way. You know, like this, you have a 44% chance of winning the game if you convert this 1/4 down at this point. It's stupid. It's ridiculous. And the Chargers severely underachieve because of that way of thinking that Brandon Staley participates in, because they really do have a very talented roster. So I do stand by the fact that they should have done that, but I had to change the entire content of the video because a lot of it was themed around them making that trade. And considering what the Broncos gave up, come on, Chargers. You probably should have gone ahead and done it. Trade a first, and then a first this year, a second next year, and then you get Sean Payton. You don't even need a third-round pick at that point. Who cares? You are so primed and ready to win. They got a great roster, but we're gonna go through the whole thing, and we'll start with Brandon Staley. All right. So here's the thing about Brandon Staley. I was very high on this Chargers team in the preseason process. You can see that with my looking back on my preseason power rankings, where I assess how well I did and how well I didn't do. And the Chargers were one of those teams where I was close, but I was much higher on them than I probably should have been. But I think a lot of their lack of success came from the way that Brandon Staley conducts himself. And that comes with the unnecessary chances that he takes, depending on all these, the analytics to, decide what plays to call, and it's wild. It's a wild way to go about things, and it really did lead to their drastic underachievement in my prediction. I thought that he could potentially be coach of the year. I thought Austin Eckler was primed to be offensive player of the year. I thought there was a lot of potential there, and I think them bringing Kellen Moore over from the Dallas Cowboys is really important, because Kellen Moore did some really good things with a guy like Dak Prescott. I think that you got Justin Herbert, who's a much better quarterback than Dak Prescott. I think that they have more consistency in their weaponry as well than what Dallas had, and when you look at what their offense did under the previous regime, they were third in passing yards. They were eighth in points, eighth in total yards. The only thing they really struggled with was the rush yards, but that comes with the style that they were going about. And I think now with Austin Eckler, and you have Isaiah Spiller back there, who you drafted in this past draft, you've got a lot of potential to really close the gap there and improve the yards, because you were eighth in yards. You can probably get that into the top 5 now with Kellen Moore, because he, now with better players, perhaps with a little bit more freedom, because his head coach is a defensive coach, unlike how it was in Dallas where he had Jason Garrett and he had Mike McCarthy. This is more or less going to be for sure his show. So I think that that's extremely valuable for him. He was a head coaching candidate for a while. I think he'll help, keep this offense strong where the strengths, you can see what the strengths were, and also improve on some of the weaknesses there, like the red zone, as rushing yards, and then maybe gain some new personnel in there a little bit to improve on the sacks also. And then you look at the defense. This is really Brandon Staley's show. This is where he thrives, and they just weren't what you needed them to be. So I think a drastic improvement for them in this sense is what really needs to be in the cards. J.C. Jackson's going to come back, hopefully play a full season. You're going to hopefully get Joey Bosa and Khalil Mack, who are, a great combination, but, you need more consistency out of them as they get a little bit older. And then there's just the interior defensive line, man. They need some real long-term solutions there, up the middle in particular, to improve that. They signed a bunch of like veteran guys to like these short-term contracts. And I think you need to get people in there who are more consistent, who can grow in the system, who are going to be maybe playing with a little bit more urgency. I don't like saying that guys don't put in the effort, but a guy who's 33, his maximum amount of effort is probably a lot less than a guy who's 22. That's just the way it is. That's coming from a 33-year-old. So I think that's where they really need to improve, as you can see in their rankings. And I think that'll also help them bring the points down and allow them to win more games with the type of offense that they have. But again, that also comes with maybe Brandon Staley being a little bit less reliant on the analytic aspect of it. Because if this is what the analytics are delivering for you on the defensive side of the ball, then the analytics aren't working. You're falling short. Whatever the odds are, you're falling on the negative side of it more often than not, and that is a real problem. Another issue that they're going to have is their salary cap. They are just under $20 million over the cap going into the start of this offseason. But luckily, they don't really have a lot of key guys that they need to worry about bringing back, so they can make some cap-saving moves. They can maneuver, do some little cap magic here. I like Cameron Dicker and Foster Stroll coming back as exclusive free agents. Super light, 870K cap hits for both of them. I think that's perfectly fine. Then you got Keenan Allen and Joey Bosa, who you can restructure for some major cap savings. And then Gerald Everett and Michael Davis, you can cut them and save $13 million. So you're clearing up a lot of cap space by not really losing a whole lot. Gerald Everett was likely going to be replaced anyway. People are talking about tight ends. Michael Mayer's a possibility. And then people are also talking about the cornerback room, that being replenished a little bit, get a little cheaper there. Michael Davis isn't exactly setting the world on fire. I think you want to find somebody to mix in there with Asante Samuel and J.C. Jackson that's maybe a cheaper option, because you probably will want to extend Asante Samuel. So you want to get maybe Michael Davis off the books and free up some of that money to then hand over to Asante Samuel in the future. So all that gives them a decent amount of spending cap, just under $17 million. And because they do have some needs there. They do have some needs. And we'll start with that offensive tackle. Now, I know Jamari Salyer stepped in and did quite well. But, do you maybe want to have him as a guard? I think that could be a possibility. Maybe you draft an offensive tackle that's got a little bit of versatility to him that could maybe kick it inside. If Peter Skoronski is the guy that falls, do you pick him with the intention on playing him at guard? Or letting him and Foster Shell Jamari Salyer, him and Jamari Salyer sort of work out who's going to be the starting guard and who's going to be the starting tackle. And then you got a left guard and a right tackle between the two of them. I think that could be a real possibility. I think obviously the tight end position is something they need to look into. The defensive back, maybe, getting a versatile defensive back, maybe like Antonio Johnson, who can play corner and safety, might be a little bit more their speed, make a little bit more sense for them. And then right up the middle, like I said, the interior defensive line and the inside linebackers, they need to make sure that they can stop the run to really give guys like Khalil Mack and Joey Bosa and J.C. Jackson, Asante Samuel, Derwin James more opportunities in the passing game to really make an impact in that sense. So, you have to be able to stop the run to not allow teams to completely neutralize where a lot of your money has been spent. The four biggest contracts I think right now on their entire team is Derwin James, J.C. Jackson, Khalil Mack, and Joey Bosa. So figure out a way to actually get them involved in games, and the best way to do that is to be able to stop the run and force teams into these second and third and long situations where they can't just hand the ball off and then get a free first down out of the deal. And because there is not a lot of cap room to really work with here, you sort of get into the situation as you get into the better teams anyway. I was just looking for some depth guys. Cody Barton and Will Harris, two defensive guys that can come in. Will Harris can be a third safety. Cody Barton can be a situational linebacker for you. They're not going to cost you an arm and a leg. They're going to be very affordable, cheaper contracts, and you can still not have to worry necessarily about feeling like you're being redundant in the draft if you do decide to go with a linebacker or a safety, perhaps in the first 2 days of the draft. Because you're spending low amounts of money on guys who are going to be positioned more as role players on the defense regardless. You kind of don't want Cody Barton and Will Harris to be full-time starters to get those full-time starter reps, because then you're kind of leaving yourself vulnerable. Nothing against them, but they are replacement level starters, depth pieces. That swing safety, Will Harris is sort of a swing linebacker for Barton as well. You can maybe play them both in running and passing situations, but you want to get somebody who's more full-time, and I think this opens up where you're going to have the depth, you're going to have the nice spells out there throughout games and throughout seasons, while also being able to invest highly at those positions and not leave it too crowded, I guess, in the locker room. So with that, they have $12.8 million left to sign their draft picks and to fill out the rest of their roster. I think that is a good amount for them, because once they get into that second and third wave of free agency, they'll have a much better idea of the things that they need, where they need to fill out some depth. And I think that they're in a really advantageous situation, because a lot of where they're probably going to need depth are at positions where they can sign guys on the cheap. But now we're into their draft strategy, and we sort of touched upon this throughout the entire video. You got to find a long-term fix for the rush defense. I don't know that you do that on day one. Maybe you do that on day two. Find a linebacker, find an interior defensive lineman, like a real space-eating defensive lineman. Like Siaki Ika comes to mind immediately. Mozzie Smith comes to mind immediately. So there are some options for them. And then I think on day one, you're probably better off in that first round figuring out what you're going to do at the tackle position. There's 3 tackles that I feel the Chargers cannot pass on if they're there. Paris Johnson, Peter Skoronski, and Broderick Jones. I think those are the 3 guys. I think if those 3 guys are off the board, then they can maybe move on to looking at Michael Mayer if he's available. And if Michael Mayer is gone, then that's where I think you can start looking into perhaps getting one of the corners, because the corner class is quite good. Or maybe you look into trading back, acquiring more picks, letting someone maybe move up that might be looking to get someone like Bijan Robinson if he falls, or might be looking to get a wide receiver that's fallen, or maybe you consider taking the wide receiver just as one of those luxury picks, because you do have a really strong roster, and you got Keenan Allen, you got Mike Williams. Maybe you're going to look into getting somebody else, like a Jackson Smith-Njigba. Maybe you end up really high on Jalen Hyatt or something. There's a lot of possibilities for the Chargers here, but for me, it would be worrying about, did Brian Breezy fall? If he did, take him. Did one of the top 3 tackles fall? If they did, look into that. Is there a high-quality corner there? Is Joey Porter sitting there? Do you look at Keely Ringo and think, okay, maybe we get Keely Ringo and then Asante Samuel kicks in and he plays the nickel more full-time? There's so many scenarios for the Chargers where I think it's very difficult for them to go wrong, at least in the first round. They're one of those teams that, even though they're quite good, the draft has sort of set up the way certain position classes are super strong, and especially on the top end, that they also happen to suit their needs. So they can find a real quality day one starter, really no matter what they do. And even if they trade back, I don't think any Chargers fans would be opposed to that either. Because, more picks in a strong class that has, there's a lot of good interior defensive linemen that they could find. There's a good group of that day 2 linebacker group. Even some of the tackles they can get on day 2 would be quite good as well. Even on the interior guys, if Jamari Salyer is the guy that you want to play at one of the other tackle spots full time with Rashawn Slater, there's so much that they can do. That I think that they're one of the teams that I don't think they can do wrong in this upcoming draft unless they do something wild and reach for somebody with that. I think it's the 21st pick, 22nd pick in the draft. They reach for somebody. Then, if they stay there and take Siaki Ika or Mozzie Smith, I'd probably be upset about that if I was a Chargers fan. But, I don't see that being what happens. I think that if they stay put, they're going to get somebody who's actually quality, who's going to be a day 1 starter that would have been somebody who would have gone in the next couple of picks anyway, or somebody that dropped who should have been taken much sooner. And there it is, my full predictions for the Los Angeles Chargers. Make sure to leave a thumbs up on this video if you haven't already. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so yet either. And leave your comment in the comment section, your thoughts. I want to know what they are. And I will see you guys with the next video next time.